So welcome everyone, and thank you for coming to our session, Personal Data Analytics and Management. This is the second year we've run this mini track now, and 2 years in a row we haven't been able to make it to Hawaii, unfortunately, but hopefully everyone's well and safe, and hopefully we can get to Hawaii next year. In this track, or mini track, we've got 2 papers today. So both focusing on personal data as the focus of the track, but taking 2 quite different perspectives. We've got one taking design and one focusing on security and supply chains with information flows within that. So I'm going to hand over to Katharina Bloecher, and we're going to have a talk on from personal data to service innovation, guiding the design of new service opportunities. So Katharina, over to you, and thank you for submitting to this track, and looking forward to the presentation.
Yeah, thanks for the introduction. Yeah, I'm very happy to present you our paper for this mini track, and the title is From Personal Data to Service Innovation, Guiding the Design of New Service Opportunities. My name is Katharina Bloecher. I'm a PhD candidate at Leipzig University, and I've been working for several years as a CRM manager and consultant, and my research focus is the intersection of personal data management and data-driven service innovation. And yeah, my professor Rainer Alt is here as well, and our colleagues Fabian Hunke and Gerhard Satzger can't join the session, unfortunately, but they say hello to the group. And I will guide you through the presentation today. I will start with our motivation, and then the research methodology, and then we'll deep dive into the design process of our research, and we'll present the service opportunity canvas as our instantiation, and we'll end up then with the evaluation and the outlook of next research steps. Yeah, I think I don't have to say anymore that data-driven service innovation is a huge topic nowadays, not only in research, but also a lot of organizations strive to expand their service portfolio based on data and analytics. And Rolls-Royce, for example, they analyze flight performance based on sensor data to derive recommendations for the fuel consumption, or BASF, for example. They use weather data and image data to detect or identify any diseases for plants. And so a lot of examples exist, but it's not an easy task to identify potentials of data usage for new service innovation, and organizations face a lot of challenges. So they need systematic support how to use data and analytics for their innovation initiatives. And in contrast to, for example, weather data or sensor data of machines, personal data has its peculiarities when organizations want to use this for their innovation initiatives. And organization can leverage personal data. It's a great potential to build deeper customer engagement and individual services. But personal data is often across different customer touchpoints and data sources, and organizations need to identify those touchpoints first, and need to analyze and integrate the data to really get a comprehensive view of the customer. Of course, they need to address privacy regulations and security concerns. And we all know the customer is more and more an active player for years already now, of course. And it's important to consider this active role, how the customer can co-create value by sharing the right information. And service design can offer support assistance for organizations to integrate data and analytics in innovation initiatives. And by means of various methods and visual tools, service design strengthens collaborative and cross-disciplinary design activities. And this is especially important for data-driven service innovation, where data experts and business experts must closely work together to identify here new opportunities. And when organizations strive to use personal data, they must, it's important to identify or to find out how personal data can identify relevant customer needs and how this personal data can also satisfy these needs so that customer can achieve their goals. And we specify this or refer to this specific step of identifying customer needs and satisfying customer needs with personal data as service opportunity identification. And this service opportunity identification we refer to as a stepping stone between the exploration phase in service design initiatives and the concept development of concrete services. When we look into the literature, we find tools that support organizations to build understanding of their data resources. And we also find a few tools that even offer assistance to derive customer insights based on these data resources and to build up customer understanding. Tools also such as the Data Insight Generator or the Data Innovation Board, for example, they even support organizations to really find the data need fit, how data can satisfy customer needs. But only a few of these tools or only a few of these approaches really look at personal data in specific. And as this is a really new research field, there is no tool that really cover comprehensively all the different aspects for the service opportunity identification. And they also do not cover aspects that need to be considered for requirements of personal data management, or they do not specify the potential of service personalization. And based on this research gap, we defined our research objective to develop methodological support through service design tools for the systematic use of personal data during the step of service opportunity identification. And we formulated our research question, how to develop service design tools supporting the identification of service opportunities by using personal data by design, which means using personal data systematically. The results of our research are the initial conceptual knowledge in the form of generic design principles and an instantiation for service design tools, the so-called service opportunity canvas. Our research design is based on a design science research process, and we adapted the three-cycle approach of Hefner. We started our research with exploratory interviews in the relevance cycle to gather first empirical data, how practitioners approach data and analytics in their innovation initiative, and also which problems they encounter here. And then we screened relevant literature for conceptual knowledge in relevant literature streams, such as service design, of course, data and analytics-based services, and business modeling. And based on these results, we formulated first design principles and used these design principles for our instantiation, the service opportunity canvas. We had several evaluation episodes for our design artifacts. First, we started with thinking aloud interviews and focus group analysis to evaluate the user's perception and the use of visual service design tools. Then we followed up with the semi-structured expert interviews to improve the understanding how the conceptual knowledge is related to each other, and how the conceptual knowledge also offer the components for the service design instantiation. And then we had user workshops to collect systematic feedback, how participants take advantage of the canvas. And these evaluation setups took place in different industries. As mentioned, we used the input from the literature review and from the exploratory interviews to formulate first design principles, which we iteratively also improved in our research process. The first design principle is that service design tools should combine a data and a customer-centric perspective. The second one is that service design tools must support on how to use personal data as an additional source of exploration to improve customer understanding. And here, the aspect of identifying customer needs using personal data is integrated. The third design principle is called that service design tools should support the matching process between identified customer needs and available personal data to create personalized value to customers. And here the aspects are evident that these data need fits are essential, and that also personalization is a key aspect when using personal data. And the final design principle is that service design tools should foster creativity for the use of personal data by providing a visual template. Service design tools often use visual templates or methods in their processes, but when we work with data now in this creative process, it is especially important as like traditional ways of showing data, such as reports or data sheets, are not the most optimal way to foster creativity. And that's why the aspect of visual templates here is essential. Our expert interviews had the objective to improve the understanding of the conceptual knowledge that we identified in the literature review, and how these knowledge can bring the components for the service design tools. And here we used a standardized procedure where we asked the expert, okay, how do you relate the different aspects? What's the logical sequence here? And this input this input resulted in an ontology that built the theoretical foundation also for our instantiation. And this ontology describes the main concept and their relationship to each other. The phases of the design thinking process of Brown were used to build three main building blocks: the inspiration, ideation, and implementation. And the inspiration, for example, maybe I make it a little bit bigger, consists of the customer understanding, which is of course in the service design process the important beginning. And this customer understanding consists of the customer needs and customer process and context. And personal data can provide insights to identify both. And analytics, of course, uses personal data, or personal data is the fundament for analytics, and analytics can help to understand customer needs here. And also, it's used to create customer understanding. The ideation block then is all about creating customer value by means of personal data. And also here, analytics plays a role, but not for identifying customer understanding. Here, analytics plays a role for creating direct value. Personalization is, of course, directly involved in the use of personal data. So it creates customer value as well. And service interaction is here the aspect which consists of the service user role and service channels that are involved in the service. And the service user role means if it's more a self-service oriented service, or is there any interaction between the customer or any service employees. And in the final building block, the implementation building block, aspects were integrated, such as which internal and external resources which are necessary to implement the service, then specific requirements that are related to personal data usage, related to privacy and security concerns, for example, and the service portfolio, which means that when the service is implemented, any other services involved here? Do we need any integration, or is a smart product involved, which needs to be considered when the service is implemented? And these three building blocks are the theoretical foundation for the canvas design then. And different guiding questions were formulated so that the canvas can be used in workshop settings, and participants can work out in the different fields the certain aspects. And the participants start here in the inspiration phase to collect which customer needs exist in a certain context, for example, via previous surveys or customer feedback information or market reports, for example. Then the next step is how personal data can describe the customer by looking at specific customer processes, and can also personal data help really to understand the context of the customer. And the final part here is how the role of analytics, how analytics can support to build up further customer understanding, for example, by validating existing hypotheses, or also by generating new hypotheses. In the ideation block, the guiding question in the analytics field is how can available data and analytics create new value for the customer? So here, as mentioned, the focus of the analytics is how analytics can create value. Personalization is a separate field really to highlight the role of personal data for or to personalize the service. And then in the service interaction field, guiding questions guide the way, for example, to collect relevant service channels, or how the customer consume the service directly, or if a service employee is involved. And to end up the description and the implementation block, internal and external resources will be collected just as requirements, and aspect of the portfolio should be described. And to give you an example, and to make it more a little bit concrete, I would like to present you a few points that participants of one of the user workshops in the food service sector collected. For example, in the customer need field, examples in the food service area, like in the restaurants, are that, of course, a customer in a restaurant would like to have a personal welcome. They would like to have special individual service depending on their specific needs, if they have any allergies, for example. Special seating is one identified customer needs, just depending on the occasion of the visit. And also participants collected the point that guests would like to know what others, like similar person, what they usually order, drink, eat, to get more inspiration or recommendations. And in reflection to these customer needs, the participants collected ideas in the data value field, such as an automatic alert, for example, for free seating, or an automatic assignment of relevant tables, and then personal recommendations, what other likes, like similar what we know in the e-commerce area, but also information services to offer more of information about the product in the restaurant setting. And related also to these, in the personalization field, they had ideas such as the portion side, the individual naming of favorite dishes or individual menus, to show that personal data can also be used just to personalize the product, even when the product is not the data itself. And that's why we have here examples that data can be the service itself, or when we use creatively analytics, but also data plays an important role in personalizing products and services, and both aspects should be combined here. To end up with the evaluation and the outlook, we had, as mentioned before, several evaluation settings where we also continuously improved and adapted the canvas and also the design principles. We adapted, for example, the specific naming, or we integrated different fields together to improve the logical flow, and we used the input that we got, for example, from the experts and from the focus group interviews, also to make the canvas better, and also to adapt the design principles. For the evaluation approach in general, we used a criteria-based approach, and along the criteria relevance and utility and functionality and understandability. We learned that the participants positively evaluated the relevance of the canvas. As general, the use of personal data represents an abstract and complex problem, and especially in the systematic consideration of personal data in the beginning requires a radical rethinking of the discipline, because service designers usually start with customer needs. They use market reports, they use interviews to collect the information, but looking at personal data, what's already available in organizations, and integrating this perspective is quite new, and it requires a discipline. We learned that from the feedback. And in addition, companies are often also not aware of their data treasure, and the integration of this perspective really helps to highlight this point. But what we also learned is that customer needs should be directly always in the beginning in the whole service design process. It doesn't make sense to start with the personal data because then you have a huge lake and you don't know where to start. And this also reflects the importance of the first design principle to really integrate both perspectives, the customer-centric perspective and the data perspective directly from the beginning. To align both perspectives along the process. Regarding the functionality, we learned that the ideas that were generated by the use of the canvas were positively assessed, and especially the guiding questions were positively assessed. But the participants also gave us the feedback that it's not a self-exploratory tool yet, so instructions are still necessary. A moderator is necessary just to build the group through the use of the canvas. And they also said that the final building block still requires some prioritization. So that means that in the first building blocks, you got really a lot of different ideas, but then it would make sense more to prioritize on one or two ideas in the final building block to work out the resources, the requirements, and to become more concrete here in that section. And regarding the understandability, the iterations improved the understandability of the canvas, and as mentioned, we adapted the initial terminology and structures, and but still also in our final evaluation setting, participants mentioned that examples would help to explain the naming, and this also goes beyond the need that a moderator is still required. So here are points of improvements to make it more self-exploratory, so that the use of the tool become more easier. To end up with the contribution and next research steps. The theoretical contribution lays in the initial conceptual knowledge in the form of the generic design principles, which also can be used for other service design tools, and the ontology, which offer theoretical knowledge for further instances, for further instantiations. And by taking this data-centric perspective, we also provide interdisciplinary knowledge contribution for the service design discipline. So here the contribution lays really in the integration of both perspective, the customer-centric and the data-centric perspective, to show that the service design discipline is great to develop new data-driven service innovation, but just needs to integrate this data-centric perspective more strongly. The knowledge can also support researchers, of course, to design new tools, and practitioners when they select specific tools. And also, as a practical contribution, the instantiation can be used as a workshop tool, of course, for organizations. The research limitations lays definitely in the early empirical results. And so further naturalistic evaluation settings are definitely necessary. Most of our evaluation settings had an artificial character, so it's necessary to gather more data here in real-world settings, also across different industries, to show that the canvas can be used in different industries. And the design principles is also important, to generalize the use of the design principles across different artifacts, different instantiations. Further points of consideration that could be very valuable are, on the one hand, the role and integration of service network partners to use also other data for the services. Then the aspect of privacy design, we have it in the requirements section, but as we all know, privacy by design is such an important topic for personal data management that it could be also an own field, an own component to highlight the necessity. And the last point could be, what could be very valuable is the data ownership. We had it in the introduction with personal data markets. What Philip said is that more and more personal data management goes away from the organization to the customer, and there are questions how customers can really manage their data and what kind of new services can be developed here when the customer provides the organization the data. And we think that this integration of this perspective can also be very valuable to offer further support to organizations. So that's it. I hope I was in my 25 minutes. Perfect, and now I'm looking forward for discussion questions.